cause further political damage to Rishi Sunak.
Which it will do if it carries on.
Of course it will. And this is the Labour peers, the Lib Dem peers, and no doubt some of the Conservative wets, banding together, causing political damage to Rishi Sunak. And the longer it goes on, the worse it will be for the Conservative Party.
There's now a deadline on the Rwanda plan. It's got to start working this summer to have any electoral benefit for Rishi Sunak, because, of course, if the election is in November, by then the costings will slow down. It's got to be up and running by about May or June, and then they'll take it from there.
Cool. And you have a crumb of comfort for us. Rishi Sunak met a Prime Minister.
Well, a crumb of comfort for those who want to stop the boat, certainly, or we'll get towards it. The PM today met Alexander De Croo, who's a Belgian Prime Minister. They've agreed a UK-Belgium law enforcement cooperation agreement. In short, that is a focus on surveillance and information, ultimately, which should help stop the boats. Not many boats make crossings from Belgium, but it's the kind of they can hopefully use law enforcement. These are the kind of deals which Sir Keir Starmer's talking about. If he becomes Prime Minister, he'll do more of these deals with countries on the continent, and this shows that the Tory PM can do them too. And
there may be intelligence sharing of crime gangs that operate within Belgium. As you say, it's a much, much further distance, much more perilous across the North Sea. Very unlikely that people will be leaving in any great numbers from Belgium. But nevertheless, is this of note, or is it a token victory against the backdrop of domestic loss?
It's interesting they can do it with Belgium and not do it with the European Union, because so far we've been told the returns agreements can't be agreed with individual countries because they've got the European Union to talk to. Maybe this deal can be mirrored with France, and that might help with better cooperation, because basically after Brexit we're a sovereign country. We have to work on some areas more closely with our European neighbours.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening, and the top story from the GB newsroom tonight. Labour will reportedly abandon its policy to spend £28 billion on environmental projects. Multiple reports are suggesting tonight Sir Keir Starmer is due to confirm the major U-turn in Labour policy, saying the pledge is being scaled back due to the changed economic landscape since it was first unveiled in 2021. Last year, Labour adjusted its original plan by saying the spending target would likely be met in the second half of a first Parliament if the party won the next election. An official announcement is expected to be made tomorrow. Police hunting a suspected chemical attacker say he was in a relationship with his victim. New videos being released of Afghan asylum seeker Abdul Izidi nearly a week after he threw corrosive liquid across a woman in South London. Police say she'd agreed to meet him on the day of the attack, and they believe a breakdown in the relationship may have been a motive. The 31-year-old mother, who may lose sight in her right eye, remains under sedation in hospital. Darius Nassimi of the Afghan and Central Asian Association says fellow Afghans should not be helping Azidi.
Someone like him should not be harboured. He himself needs help as well. I don't know if he has any mental health problems or issues. For the Afghan community, the message is please stop harbouring him if anyone is, and please stop helping him if they are.
The Prime Minister's been accused of letting parts of the country go without basic dental care. Sir Keir Starmer claims the NHS has been neglected by the Conservatives while they've been in power. It's after a government announced new plans to boost the number of appointments across England by offering to pay dentists for every new NHS patient. The US Secretary of State has said tonight that Hamas's proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza has clear non-starters, but does leave space for an agreement. Antony Blinken earlier said that more aid was also needed in Gaza and the Palestinian Authority needed renewal. He also said the focus remained on bringing the Israeli hostages home. Israel's Prime Minister, Benjamin Netanyahu, has rejected the proposed ceasefire, saying total victory in Gaza is possible for Israel within months. The Prince of Wales has spoken about his father's cancer diagnosis for the first time, thanking the public for their kind messages of support. Prince William was at an event raising funds for London's air ambulance charity. Hollywood star Tom Cruise was there, as well as Arsenal manager Mikel Arteta. The Prince also thanked those wishing his wife a speedy recovery after her planned abdominal surgery. Meanwhile, King Charles has postponed all public-facing duties on the advice of his doctors, and it's understood weekly audiences with the Prime Minister are expected to resume in 2 weeks. For the very latest stories, do sign up for GB News Alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Nick Dixon, taking you through tomorrow's top stories for the next hour, and I'm joined by the People's Gammon, Paul Cox, and a man who eats gammons for breakfast. Literally, it's Lewis Schaefer. Someone will tweet me and saying that's not the plural of gammon. I know that, but it was a joke. How are you both doing?
Cool beans.
Is that what you say now? Cool beans.
That's what the gammon says.
You've got your name is the People's Gammon. You've got a lame new catchphrase. That's cool beans.
I'm not a big gammon supporter because it's cured and then it's cooked, so all the life has been knocked out of it.
A bit like Lewis Schaefer. Sorry, Lewis. We started early. Shots fired already. OK, let's have a look.
I wasn't even paying attention, waiting for that. Now I'm
no, yeah, be on guard. I will be attacking you throughout the show. Let's have a look at the front pages then. So the Daily Mail has, thank you so much for all your kindness, which comes from Prince William. We'll be talking about that in a minute. The Guardian revealed Moan told government she wouldn't benefit from PPE deal. The Telegraph, migration won't save UK from debt crisis. The Daily Express, has PM opened door to an amazing Boris comeback? Why are we not doing that story? The Mirror, shame on you. And the Daily Star, return of the beast from the east. And those are your front pages. So let's kick off with the Daily Mail, Paul.
Yeah, I feel like I should be doing the Boris story.
Yeah, I just saw that. I was like, why are we doing some stuff about migration? Anyway, but this is important,
This is also important. The Daily Mail, thank you so much for all your kindness. This is William's message to the nation as his brother jets back to LA after a 26-hour trip. And obviously it's been quite the week, quite a harrowing week, I guess, for the royal family. It's reassuring to see them out and about. What else can they do? We've got a picture there of the King and the Queen, and obviously Prince William was out with Tom Cruise because it's Wednesday. So, you know, what do you say? Yeah, it's what you do, isn't it?
Yes, and there's this top story at the top here. I'm told Harry took it upon himself to fly over and Charles was left kicking his heels until he arrived. So more Harry bashing. But Harry does seem to come out badly yet again out of this.
Yeah, do you know what? Obviously, I've listened to the rhetoric about this. The idea that Harry came over to capitalise and get some sort of clout just because his dad's got cancer. I don't want to believe it, so I'm not going to believe it. But that's not to say it's not true. It's just the idea that a son would quickly jet over to make sure he was part of the furore because his dad's got cancer. I just can't see it.
No. I can't. I don't think he did that. But William didn't see him. Is that correct?
No, he just didn't have time, did he? He was looking after his wife, and he was at an appointment with Tom Cruise.
Now, Lewis, I know you've attacked our royal family before, but what do you think to all this?
Well, I think he's actually beloved, and the royal family's beloved. So it's not for me to say. I think the bigger issue, there are bigger issues involved. One is we don't know what's the matter with the dude. We don't know where the cancer is.
The dude.
You mean our king?
The king.
His Royal Highness, Lewis.
It could be a real learning experience. It's like in America in the 1970s when President Ford's wife, Betty Ford, had went into the clinic for alcoholism, and it was a tremendous benefit to the entire nation. People need to know what
we're now hooked on painkillers.
Who people need to know.
Why do they need to know? I mean, you know, he's a relatively elderly person. Also, he's the king. There's a certain decorum therein. Do we need to know exactly the details?
Would you like to know the details? Maybe not.
Crumbled there very, very quickly.
You know what?
It's not quite news night, is it?
No, well, you know what? Maybe not. We don't need to know. I tell you why I think we need to know. Because he's been recommended a diet, which is very sugar laden, which is known to actually make cancer grow.
OK, so I'm surprised that you managed to bring it back to sugar. So there we are, staying on brand. But let's have a look at Thursday's Telegraph then, Lewis.
This is interesting. Good news. Good news. Migration won't save the UK from debt crisis.
They're stretching it a bit on the good news front.
Well, I'll make it good news.
OK.
Is what this is this is the guy from the Office of Budget Responsibility, which we've heard a lot about, and they're talking about immigration, and they're saying how there's a benefit of migration into the country, that there are more workers. And this guy is saying that it may help in the short run, but in the long run, it's not going to help this country. And what makes this good news is finally people are talking about why there's immigration. If Rishi Sunak and them were honest about why there's such migration into the country.
And them,
whoever them
You've been
are.
in the UK a long time. and them lot. OK, yeah, it's David Miles, like you say, from the OBR. And it is quite important to make this point because we're sometimes sold this dream, migration leads to endless economic growth, but not necessarily true. I mean, Douglas Murray debunked it in his book, The Strange Death of Europe. I mean, it's a kind of a pyramid scheme because these people get old and then they become dependents themselves. We do have a problem with our dependency ratio, people in work to out of work, but immigration is a very limited, short-term solution. What do you think, Paul?
Well, he's saying that cutting benefits and cutting immigration is the solution to the problem. Well, good luck with that in the next 4 years with a Labour government,
yes.
who are the party of benefits and immigration, let's face it. And I guess they're going to come in on a manifesto of more immigrants and more benefits. So I'm not quite sure what we're going to do. Perhaps we'll just fix that in 5 years' time with Nigel Farage as head of the People's Republic of Great Britain.
That would be good. I mean, Miles here is talking about reforming welfare. I mean, that has to be done. I mean, libertarians often say you can have an open border, you can have a welfare state. Or which one is it? I'm looking to Lewis to finish this for me. That's how
unbelievable.
I mean, you can't have a welfare state and an open border. You can have one or the other. You can have a lot of immigration, but not if people can just come in. You become the benefit system for the world.
Yes.
Or you can close your border and you can have more benefits. So you're going to have to reform benefits.
Or fingers crossed, there's another COVID-like catastrophe, and all the old people are killed, which is what Bill Gates possibly wanted.
Yes.
You start off with fingers crossed.
Other opinions are available to both those things. One, the idea that we don't want old people to die. That's for balance. I don't want that.
I don't want them either. But there's a possibility there are people out there who are thinking that they wanted people to die, and they did. Old people, they wanted them to die.
We're appealing, we like to appeal to all tiny percentages of the country. So, I think we've pretty much covered that. I mean, it's a bit of a pyramid scheme, this whole immigration thing, and I think it's good that some people are saying this. And there we have Cruz and William on the front page. Yeah. And Starmer abandoned 28 billion Green pledge, which doesn't seem to be getting any traction, but he's abandoned his only policy.
Total U-turn, in fact.
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised it's not bigger. All right, let's have a look at The Guardian then, Paul.
My favourite paper. Yeah. Revealed. Moan told government she wouldn't benefit from PPE deal. She didn't really, did she? Because it's gone in a trust fund. It's only £29 million. What's all the worry about?
Yeah.
Look, the thing about this deal with I've always maintained the principle that during that particular crisis, striking any deal that would sort of protect the UK was a good deal, no matter how high risk, and the due diligence was obviously going to go out. Of course, subsequently, we've discovered that somebody who was within government, who was brokering one of those deals, has benefited extremely well from the deal. And of course, that's a big issue because she is now on record saying there were no conflicts whatsoever and she wouldn't financially benefit. Well, you're going to have to redefine what financial benefit is, because I'd say 30 million quid.
Yeah, well, when she says no conflicts whatsoever, she might mean inner conscience about receiving a large amount of money. That's what I took it to be. What do you think, Lewis?
Well, this is one of those typical stories about the Tories, whatever. Tories steal. and Labour wastes.
Yeah, that's good. That's
I made that up myself.
That's good, actually.
Yeah.
It's like your Team World
You
thing.
should speak
I
to
like
Reform.
There's the
Tory
either way.
steal, Labour waste.
Labour waste. Labour basically takes our money and gives it to people who don't deserve it, throwing the money away. And Tories steal it and give it to their own.
To people who do deserve it. So
Yeah.
it's a great system. OK, well, let's have a quick look at the Star then, Lewis. Very important story.
Well, as you know, I'm a meteorologist. I went to the University of London to study meteorology.
Yeah,
and
it's a top university.
I love British weather, and this is return of beast from the east, because all cold weather either comes due south or from the east. If weather's coming from the south, it's going to be warm and dry. If it's coming from the east, it's going to be slightly warmer than if it comes from the east and the north, but it's going to be wet because it's coming across the water. And so they're saying that, I mean, winter isn't over. It's still January. It's still February. It's
When is it? 1987 or whatever it is.
We don't know.
It's an immigration story as well, because it says that thousands are fleeing to Benidorm to escape the weather. Boffins, of course, are fearful because there could be a deadly combo of snow and ice. So it's got all of its words in the front page, the Star there. And I'd like to thank them from me for their journalism.
Yeah, if weather ever runs out, the Star are in a lot of trouble.
Yeah.
But they've got boffins, they've got half of us are victims of psychos, but they just mean seagulls. And I know that by now because I've followed the Daily Star every night on this show.
Yeah.
Seagulls, boffins, weather, job's done. All right, that is it for part one. But coming up, Starmer has a pop at Sunak and Elon Musk takes on Disney. See you in a minute.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
Are you across this microaggression story?
I'm across microaggressions. I'm also across XL bullies.
You would not last 5 minutes.
Oh, for God's
So
sake,
basic-
civil servants, give me strength.
So civil servants have been taught not to roll their eyes. Something you do very well. We both do it quite a lot, actually.
Because it's seen as an act of microaggression. This, by the way, this costs the taxpayer, this training, £160,000. What the hell is going on in our woke civil service? Who cares if someone rolls their eyes in exasperation?
What the hell is going on in our civil service, full stop, if the way that civil servants are communicating with each other is rolling their eyes and looking at their phones? I mean, is the government being run by people who are essentially acting to each other like stroppy teenagers?
Yeah.
But I'm all right with people, because, you see, I would be in defence of eye rolling.
So me too, I couldn't care less.
But do you know why? Because I want people to give me their genuine reaction, as long as it's not deeply offensive. But I want to know how people feel. And what they're being told here, civil servants are being taught, and of course this is an area of employment law, because people are taking cases against their bosses who roll their eyes at them. They're saying they're being encouraged to say nothing and nod their heads to promote transparency and inclusion. Don't show what you really think, just nod your head.
But I think that comes with then saying what you really think, and this is the key problem, and what these courses are trying to establish. And I looked into some of them when I was researching this, and it's not saying hide what you're feeling. It's saying, rather than huffing and puffing and rolling your eyes, if you've got a disagreement with someone, say I've got a disagreement with someone. Because otherwise, you can't have an effective workplace if people are sort of just passively, aggressively huffing at each other.
Why do these civil servants need to be taught this? Why do people need to be taught this? This is just normal discourse in a normal working day. You don't need a seminar on it.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Now, next Monday, February 12th at 8 p.m, GB News will be hosting a People's Forum with the Prime Minister in the northeast of England. This will be a live one-hour Q&A where you can put your questions directly to him. So why don't we hear from the Prime Minister about how you can get involved?
Hi, Rishi Sunak here. Join me for a special GB News People's Forum Live on Monday the 12th of February. I want to hear about the issues that matter to you. For your chance to be part of the audience and to put your questions to me, scan the QR code on screen or go to gbnews.com. See you there.
All right, well, speaking of the Prime Minister, let's get back into the stories with the Times, because Keir Starmer has told off Rishi Sunak for using the trans issue as a political football, thus surely using the trans issue as a political football himself, Paul.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm irate, but I'll get into it. Keir Starmer admonishes Rishi Sunak for trans comments in Parliament. So this is part of PMQ today. Of course, today is Wednesday, and this is being reported tomorrow in Thursday. And Sunak said, it's a bit rich to hear about promises from someone who has broken every single promise he was elected on. Almost 30 in the last year, and one of which, he said, which was defining a woman. Although, in fairness, that was only 99% of a U-turn. Now,
referencing Starmer's thing that 99% of women, of trans, whatever it was, of women are women. What was it? Something like that. 99%. I think 0.9%.
99% of women don't have penises.
Yes. Was that Ed Davey? It was something like that. Anyway, go on.
I would challenge that statistic.
Oh, no, it was that, wasn't it? And Ed Davey said clearly some women can have a penis, which was even more absurd. Go on.
So it's classic distraction here from Starmer, and I really don't like the conflation here, and it's the sort of thing that's right at the centre of a lot of the culture war we discuss. At this point, let's face it, the fact is that Keir Starmer is a flip-flopper. He changed his mind. He's flailing around in the political winds. He's someone who knows he's got a very good chance of winning, and he's just grabbing hold of anything wherever he can.
He's a flop flipper. He even flips over flip-flopping.
Exactly. And what he's done in this exact point is he's pointed out, he's gone... So he's hit back at this point and gone, of all the weeks to say that, when Brianna's mother is in the chamber, shame. And now he's pointed to Brianna's mother. This is Brianna J's mother, who's the transgender girl that was very sadly murdered last year. And to conflate the two, for me, is outrageous. Absolutely outrageous. There was absolutely no need to. OK, the trans subject was being talked about, but you don't then distract to save your own bacon, point out that there is a dead trans girl's mother in the public gallery.
Yeah, in the gallery, or was arriving at the gallery. I'm not sure exactly which it was. But, yeah, and everyone's saying, oh, Sunak's messed up. Maybe he has slightly made a mild faux pas, but I think Starmer comes off worse, personally, to immediately make it about that. Shame, of all the weeks to say that. To me, that highlights it far more. He could have just let it go. Lewis?
Well, it's a typical trope. Is that the right word?
Sure.
Where if you make a comparison, whatever the comparison is, suddenly people focus on the comparison and equate what you've said with the comparison, and you're saying, what is this? It's like with all those Nazi comparisons. You can compare anything with anything. But you say, oh, you're comparing it to the Nazis? How can you compare it to the Nazis? And so it is that. But the truth is, this is all's fair in love and war. I don't think this is that egregious.
Right, it's normal politics, but it's Starmer's always saying, oh, the Tories are stoking divisive culture wars, then does this, while kneeling for BLM.
He's the only one doing that, because at no point, until that point, was Rishi doing that, and then he does it and said, you're bad for me doing it.
Yes. OK, well, I think we've covered that. And let's be clear, we're not just saying that because Rishi Sunak is appearing on Feb 12th at a Q&A in the northeast of England.
The fact that he's doing that, his next step is going to be here on the panel on Headliners.
Yes.
Is that going to be before the election or after the election?
I really want to see Lewis Schaefer on a panel with Rishi Sunak. I don't even have to be the host. I'll just be watching at home with popcorn. Lewis explaining why water dehydrates you. I can't wait to the Prime Minister.
He will think to himself, my God, I've gone this low.
To be honest, if it doesn't go too well for him in the election, he could seriously end up here.
Yeah, I'd love to have him.
It's a great channel. Let's have a look at the Telegraph. And Indian businessmen are the latest people to notice that London is a crime-ridden dystopia, Paul.
Yeah, it's quite amazing, isn't it? London Rolex thefts blow up into trade deal row with India. So David Lammy, who, by the way, is Labour's Foreign Secretary, is doing trade deals on behalf of Great Britain. I'm not too sure why, but perhaps I'm just naive. So David Lammy flew out.
They couldn't get Femi.
Yeah, they couldn't get Femi. Imagine. I haven't got all my shorts clean. Where bosses raised concerns over attacks and failure for police to respond. So he's saying, look, this guy is saying, look, me and a bunch of other CEOs from India, wealthy guys, have spent time, even in Mayfair in London, and we've been robbed. 9 times out of 10, we've been robbed, and you're doing nothing about it. And of course, within this article, there is no response from David Lammy. I assume he just distracted and said, yeah, but the Tories are bad. But the one thing about this, about London in particular, and London's crime epidemic, is it kind of proves that party politics is a bit of a nonsense sometimes. Because what we're hearing all the time is that Labour are going to come in and fix Britain. But they have had a very, very long time to fix London and haven't been able to do it. So fixing Britain is a much bigger job than fixing London. So the idea that that you can't compare the two is ridiculous. And it also proves that nobody can do it. So everybody's lying, and we need to just not vote for anybody and put Lewis Schaefer in charge.
Yeah, but this is absolutely damning. I mean, you know, you have Indian businessmen saying you don't want to go somewhere where you're going to get mugged, and the police aren't going to respond, crucially. Yeah. It's an international embarrassment. It's Sadiq Khan. I mean, yeah, who knows who's to blame? A number of people to blame.
Yeah. It is an international embarrassment because the whole purpose of London was to be a safe haven for these people with lots of money. But I think it looks worse to these Indian people because they got so much money, and yet Britain is giving them. Isn't Britain giving them money for aid and stuff?
Probably.
Whatever. Yeah. So it's like we're feeling sorry for them because they're Indians and they must be poor, but they're rich. They're so absolutely rich. So maybe.
It is shocking. It's kind of a known fact now in London. You can't carry a watch. I mean, you know, your Casio is probably OK, Lewis. 12 quid from Argos. But like Amir Khan had a £70,000 watch stolen at gunpoint by someone who I just found out lives in my area. I just researched it. But so
you live in an affluent area, don't you?
No, the person who was robbing him was from my area. No, let's all calm down. But actually, speaking of areas, they do point out here this is happening in Mayfair. So in Mayfair, broad daylight, you'll be robbed for your watch. And Indian businessmen are going, why would we go into this hellhole?
Can I repeat it?
Yeah.
Which is the stock and trade of Britain is a safe haven. Safe haven for humans, safe haven for money.
Right.
And if it's not that, what does it have?
That is actually a great point. If we will lose our oligarchs parking up their money...
They'll go somewhere else.
Yeah, we don't want to lose our oligarchs keeping the housing prices up. Maybe that's the one good thing that'll happen. We'll get rid of some of our oligarchs. All right, let's have a look at the Mail then, with the first instance of a school shooter's parent being convicted for their child's crimes, Lewis.
Yeah, this is really weird. It's this guy, Jennifer Crumley, becomes the first parent in America to be convicted. Her child was a mass shooter, killed 3 people, 10 kids shot, 15-year-old, I think he was. And this is in Michigan, which is a state people always go like this. They always go Michigan. Like that. She's been put in jail for because she was supposedly had some parental liability on the shooter because she helped buy the gun for her son, and it wasn't locked up properly, and the kid
there were several things, ignored mental health warnings. He had said things like, I have zero help for my mental health problems, and it's causing me to shoot up the bleeping school. I mean, he actually said things like that. She took him to a shooting range, was more worried about her affair and horses and nights out on the town. There is a serious case here. I mean, normally you'd say there's a dangerous precedent, you know, convicting the parents, but she does seem remarkably, uniquely negligent, and he was 15. So, you know, I watched that film on Breivik, and his mother seemed a bit negligent, but he's an adult. There's only so much you can do. If he's 15, you're taking him to the shooting range, ignoring his mental health problems, buying him the gun. Is there an issue here, Paul, with the parent?
When I first read it, I thought, this isn't an issue. We shouldn't conflate these two things, and it is a dangerous precedent. But the more you read, the more you realise, of course, he's a child. So she has responsibility over him. She is his guardian, legal guardian, and therefore she could have done a lot of things reading this story to prevent him from finding himself into this position, i.e., you know, not letting him around guns, getting him help for his mental health problems, perhaps parenting him a little bit better than she did. I mean, the fact that they've used his diary to sort of potentially convict her in this case is a bit unnerving, because you can write anything in a diary, can't you?
Yeah, you could easily have a sort of psycho kid that's not really your fault. But in this case, when you read the piece, there is a sort of unique case for... She was, like, remarkably
60 years, though.
Yeah, but Michigan is one of those states that if the 15-year-old walked in to a clinic and said, I want to become a woman, the parent has no control over the child.
Right.
So this is a no-control state, and suddenly they're making this person have control.
That is a good point. Yeah, when is the child the responsibility of the parent? Many times we're told it's not. Don't even tell the parents that they want to transition. That's a very good point. Yeah, maybe this is dangerous. I don't know. Let's let the viewer decide and go on to this other story, which is in the Times, and Elon Musk is funding actor Gina Carano's lawsuit against Disney. Now, if there's one guy you don't want funding a lawsuit against you, it's the richest man in the world.
Yeah, it's great, isn't it? And we do love an Elon story. Elon Musk hints at buying Disney, which, by the way, would be superb, and funds lawsuit against studio. And the reason he's funding this lawsuit, he's helping out, I assume, a friend of his, which is Gina Carano, and she is suing Disney because she was sacked from the film Mandalorian for a tweet, essentially, where she, as a publican, compared herself to being...
Republican.
What did I say?
Publican, like she runs
like
a pub.
Adam Brooks.
Yeah. The fighting hens.
Yeah,
Gina.
I've got it on the brain.
Her career fell apart. She opened a pub. It's a classic thing.
Yeah, which is going to kind of totally undermine everything I said. I can't believe I said that. Being a Republican is like being a Jew during the Holocaust, which, of course, is one of those sort of staple comparisons which is unhelpful to anybody. But her point is, look, it was just a tweet. This is what I believe. And also, there are other actors on the film that was making quite the opposite comparison, saying that Republicans are Nazis. And they weren't penalised whatsoever.
Yeah, and I'm not sure, just to clarify, I'm not sure if they're friends, but Elon Musk put out a thing a while ago, didn't he, on X, saying if people have been cancelled, we're going to start this legal fund, let us know. And she actually replied to it and said, I think I'm a good candidate for this. And then there was a kind of delay. She didn't think anything would happen. And then he actually came through and said, yeah, we actually will fund this, which is huge because it's a fight back against cancel culture, Lewis. It's also a fight back against DEI because Disney had these inclusion standards, which Musk has released, about it must be 50% at least characters from underrepresented groups. So they've got this weird kind of... And he said it's institutionalised racism and sexism, which is correct. But what do you think?
I think God bless... Well, maybe I shouldn't say it because people can say, I can't believe you defended Elon Musk. I think Elon Musk is a breath of fresh air and providing a little bit of balance. And he's also thinking about buying Disney stock. And the people at Disney must be, thrilled to death because he bought Twitter and, basically paid 4 times as much as it was worth.
I think they deserve some pushback for this, Disney. They cancelled this woman very unfairly. This is Hollywood. They have conservatives were so attacked in Hollywood. They had to have a secret gang called the Friends of Abe. You couldn't admit you were conservative in Hollywood. I mean, how absurd is that?
McCarthyism, isn't it?
Yeah. So they're very biased, and they were dismissed unfairly, in my opinion.
But you know what? It could be unfairly, but it's just they didn't judge the wins as accurately as they could have. I don't think it was unfairly. It's like if it had exploded even more, then it would be right to fire her. But unfortunately, it's not.
Well, we'll find out in court. I'll see you in court, Lewis. That is it for part 2. But coming up, why the countryside is racist and why you probably shouldn't connect your toothbrush to the internet. 2024, everyone. See you in a minute.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
The Camilla Tominey Show, Sunday mornings from 9:30.
I appreciate the story isn't in today's papers, but it has been running all week, and it's this row over the use of nitrogen hypoxia to kill this man who was on death row in Alabama. And it's been linked back to you, and I wanted to ask you about it because this is intriguing, because you did a television show back in 2015 where you, I believe, tested this method of execution. Just tell me briefly about it, Michael. What happened?
I didn't test this method of execution, and it was a bit longer ago than that. But what I did do was test hypoxia. So I tested various ways in which people are killed in the United States. And asked the question as to whether there was a more humane way of doing it. So I was put into hypoxic situations, for example, into a chamber run by the Netherlands Air Force, which simulated what happens if you're in an aircraft at 30,000 feet and suddenly the windows blow out. And what happened to me was that I was almost instantly rendered incapable. As an experiment, I was trying to play with children's toys, putting triangle shapes into triangle spaces, and I was quickly unable to do that. I was asked, what is 9 minus 5? And I said 5. And then the officer who was with me, the Air Force officer who was wearing an oxygen mask, said to me, Michael, put your mask on or you will die. And I was incapable of putting my own mask on. Now, this suggested that hypoxia was very fast-acting, and that you had... Obviously, I was in no pain or anything like that. I was just completely unaware. By the way, this is why, if you're on an aircraft and it depressurizes, you must put your own mask on first. But of course, I can't go on and draw conclusions.
No.
We did not experiment with nitrogen. But what I can say is it was evident to me that hypoxia renders you incapable almost instantaneously.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Headliners. Let's get into it with The Telegraph. And the British countryside is a racist and colonial white space, but it also has some bad qualities, Lewis.
Oh, yeah. Well,
that's what I've come with there. Who wrote that? Lewis wrote that.
I didn't write that, but I tell you, Leo Kirst, what is racist today? This is
the countryside. Again, we've had this before, but anyway, go on.
We've had it before anyway. So it's saying that according to Wildlife and Countryside Link, a charity umbrella, is that people who aren't white are uncomfortable in the countryside. So they're trying to make it more comfortable for... I think what it is they're just trying to push the building over the countryside so that people are more comfortable without a countryside. And that's typical of the Tories. They want to destroy the countryside.
Interesting, because some people think the Tories want to protect the countryside because that's where their voters are. But
no, they don't.
I'm not surprised you have a contrary opinion, Lewis. But, I mean, this is ridiculous, Paul. I mean, this is absolutely mad. What is it? Why do they hate white people so much? This is the Wildlife and Countryside Link, who are obviously completely infiltrated by wokeness. They're saying that these green spaces are governed by white British cultural values. Why is that such a bad thing, by the way, anyway? Why are we just automatically evil? And also, how is it that anyone else has stopped getting into the countryside? Anyone who wants to go can go.
Well, it's not racist, and we know it's absolutely not racist because there is no empirical evidence within any of this to suggest it is. It's all niff-naff and trivia, and it's just lots of things like multiple complex reasons behind this. Of course there are. It's the sort of thing I say to my wife when I can't explain why I haven't done the dishwasher. You know, you just make stuff up, don't you? Claims by such Muslim groups as Muslim Hikers, which seeks to encourage Muslims to enjoy the countryside, says that rural areas were perceived to be as unwelcoming. It's just an absolute nonsense. It's full of sort of wishy-washy word bingo. There's nothing in this to suggest that anything in the countryside is racist or designed specifically for white people to do it. Yeah. It's just grass and trees.
If this story didn't exist, we would make it up for this show. I mean, they also said the UK's role in the European colonial project has driven the current climate change and nature crises. What?
They managed to crowbar in a load of
bingo
nonsense.
And a lot of these people come from countries where there are no trees because they've been totally destroyed. So I guess the idea of a pretty countryside that hasn't been totally ecologically degraded is something that is white.
Well, it just seems to me different people enjoy different things. Andrew Tate had a funny video on this because his dad was black American. He was like, look, there's certain things black people don't like doing. We don't like jumping off things or going in cold ice bath. Maybe there's just a cultural thing where some groups like doing some things, other groups like doing it. Is that such a problem? Does everyone have to do the exact same stuff?
No, exactly.
Also, it's a 80% white country or something, and so a lot of people will just be white. Is that...
The other thing, of course, is a lot of those footpaths are thousands of years old. And thousands of years ago, it was mainly just white people living it, like it is now.
Not if you watch BBC children's programmes. But anyway, let's do the Express. And Canterbury Cathedral is hosting a silent disco. All they're missing is the drag queens, Paul. I don't know why I said that. I feel bad about that joke. Go on.
Go on. Just go on after that. Christians are set to protest against a silent disco at Canterbury Cathedral, saying they don't want rave to Eminem in God's house. It's 2 sold-out nights. They're calling it absurd, and they're calling it an alcohol-fuelled rave. First of all, right at the top, let's try and stop making the church and Christianity cool. It's not what it was sent out. It's not what it was set up for. There's nothing in the Ten Commandments that said thou must be cool. Okay. The other thing, of course, is silent discos are not cool. So let's not say that they are. And Christians like to drink wine on a Sunday morning. So whilst they're banging out Jesus bangers, so I don't know. They shouldn't be the first people. They shouldn't be the people calling for.
It's also quite hard to rave to Eminem. I mean, it's quite slow.
Well, this is what happens when you don't know.
Right, it's like rap about killing people. But no, it's true, because they're going to have Venga Boys and All Saints. At least they've got some saints in there. But they're going to... It's a silent disco. You listen to these 90s classics. But you should not be doing it in a church, surely, Lewis.
You know what? The reason could have been they want to make some money.
That is the reason.
You know, that is the reason. So it's not like they're trying to make it cool. They just want to use this. They got this space. They got to heat the building. But the other side of it is that, on the other hand, maybe they'll do anything to get people just to come into the building.
They're trying to reach a younger audience, which is where my cool comment comes from.
Yeah.
And
the money thing's not a conspiracy. It says here they're trying to raise the large sums the cathedral requires to survive.
All right.
So that is true, what you said.
That is true. The point is, it's the church made no complaint when terrorists are moving into this country. They were basically greasing the wheels.
All right, the fake asylum seekers.
Right, the fake asylum seekers. So now they're complaining that we're moving into their church. It's a bit of hypocrisy.
But I don't think it should be allowed in the church. I do think Christianity, the Church of England and other Christian organisations have made themselves ridiculous and watered down by allowing things like this. And as they say here, no other religion would do this.
No way. Imagine this in a mosque on a Friday.
Yeah, not happening.
No.
All right. Let's do the Independent and the unexpected downside of connecting your toothbrush to the internet, Lewis.
Yeah, millions of hacked toothbrushes used in Swiss cyber attack, report says. And there was a big distributed denial of service, which was plugging into the chip that every I'm assuming it's an electric toothbrush.
Well, first of all, do you know what a toothbrush is?
I remember, because I haven't used one in years.
Yes, just for the viewer who doesn't know Lewis as well as we do, he's against teeth brushing. I'm not quite sure why, but it's one of your theories, isn't it?
I'm against toothbrushing because, number one, it hurts.
There's a list.
the gum.
There's a whole... I was hoping this could be short. Number one.
The most important thing, you don't need to brush your teeth if you eat a raw meat diet. You only have to brush your teeth to eliminate the carbohydrates which get on the teeth, which cause decay, which causes the shortage of dentists, which causes death.
And for balance, I want to say that is absolutely false in every regard.
And I also want to say I prefer it if you did brush your teeth.
You Google it. Google what causes tooth decay, and it's sugar on the teeth, which causes acids to build up. So you don't need it. But this story is it's a weird story because it doesn't say which Swiss company, why they were doing it, who was doing it. It's just to make people scared of their toothbrushes.
As if there wasn't enough fear in the world. But Paul, come on, it's mad, this Internet of Things or whatever it is that what it's called? Just connecting everything. Your fridge has to be online and your toothbrush. We were asking for trouble. Putin can just come in, take out all the toothbrushes. We're on our knee. Only Lewis Schaefer survives because he's used to it. He's hardened himself, been chewing a twig for about a decade. The rest of us, we're just teeth rot. We can't get dentists in this country.
No.
Putin takes us out with a cyber toothbrush attack.
I didn't brush my teeth for 4 years, and went to the dentist.
Don't tell the nation that.
I went to the dentist, and I had no cavities. Fantastic Ali.
The dentist couldn't get within 20 feet of him to have a look.
Yeah, he diagnosed it through the wall.
Bad breath isn't caused by what's in your mouth. It's caused by the stuff down in your stomach. My breath is considered bad because I'm on an all-meat diet. I'm in ketosis. People who know about
considered bad by the system.
Yes, they've demonized it. Bill Gates.
Bill Gates. Oh, I hope Paul considers it okay. Anything else on this, Paul?
The idea is that anything that's connected to the internet can be accessed by bad people. And if bad people can get to your internet, they can take down business websites, as they've done in this case. And this feels like, to me, like the people that have produced this report are looking for work.
OK. Well, let's do The Guardian then. And a hypnotist has overturned a decades-old ban on mesmerism. Presumably he's quite persuasive, Paul.
Yeah, that's a good point, actually. I hadn't considered that. So, comedy hypnotist, two words that don't normally go together, overturns decades-old ban on mesmerism. Mesmerism is just another term for people who like to hypnotise people. And this is specific to Bolton and Bolton Council. It's 70 years old, and at some point they were seemingly concerned about the dark arts of mesmerism and hypnotism. But Robert Temple, who is due this weekend to perform in Bolton's Albert Halls to hundreds of people, has managed to get this overturned. And now they can look forward to him getting people to do things without their consent, which is still popular in the north of England, I believe.
OK.
It's shocking. It's such a stupid story because if the hypnotist hadn't made a big deal about it, he could have just done it there anyway. No one was going to complain about it.
OK, well...
He's selling tickets. That's what he's doing.
Yeah. All right, well, I want to get in this one before the break. The Mail with a story about the first bad thing Donald Trump has ever done, Lewis.
It is a bad thing. He's going against his people. This is Donald Trump, and he wants to call time on the Bud Light boycott and says it's paid... Anheuser-Busch has paid the price for its evil partnership with Dylan Mulvaney. And you wonder why he's doing this. Kel surprise, there's going to be a fundraiser organized by Anheuser-Busch lobbyists to give money to Donald Trump.
Yeah, and this bothered me because, as people are saying on X, why can't Conservatives sustain a boycott? The left sustain endless boycotts. I think this channel's boycotted by virtually everyone. So why can't they do this? Because it was working and it was very effective. It destroyed Bud Light's sales. Yes, I get this thing. It's an American company, kind of. It was originally German, but they do all these things to support America. But can we really capitulate at this point, Paul, just for money, when actually it was an effective culture war strategy?
Well, that's exactly what happened, isn't it? And it's one of the fourboils of capitalism, isn't it? Which is what props up us on the left of Corbyn, which everyone else calls as the far right now. So anybody who believes in capitalism, like Donald Trump, he obviously he's done a bit of a U-turn here in a very, very cynical way, which is in his way of doing things, let's face it.
Or can I make a case for it? Mm-hmm. Is that he caused a lot of damage to this company, Anheuser-Busch, for the beer, and the other companies out there are going to be a little bit wary, but also they might be more amenable to supporting Donald Trump if he's going to possibly be on the team. If Donald Trump isn't going to be on these guys' team, they think, screw it, we'll just go against him completely.
Yeah, quite smart political move in that case, maybe. But what bothers me is they didn't apologise when that woman said, brought on Dylan Mulvaney, which was absurd and totally against the brand. They never apologised. They didn't sack the woman for ages, and they were very proud about it. And it was this kind of war. They didn't want to back down, and they paid the price. And why shouldn't they? Though Trump says, look, there's loads of woke companies, and I'm working on a list, and I might release that list. I want to see a list, big, beautiful list. You know what I mean? I want to see the list. Woke companies, folks. I want to see that, because then we will boycott them all. And Louis Schaefer will start it, I think, after his toothbrush boycott.
And we could boycott some things here, list viewers of this channel.
Absolutely.
There are companies that we should boycott who are not advertising. Look at who's...
We should, yes. Look at that in the break, who's boycotting GBNews. But that is it for part 3. But coming up in the final section, does Hollywood have too many sex scenes? And is midget an offensive name for a pub? Don't say we don't tackle the big issues. See you in a minute.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast. every day from 6 a.m.
Claire, you want to talk by cars growing by a couple of centimetres a year?
Yeah, well, 1 centimetre every 2 years.
Okay.
It's unrelenting because the people are so fixated on the big SUVs. The sales have gone through the roof, and yet it's James Nix, the analyst for Transport and Environment Campaign, said the author of the report on the trend said, spurred on by sales of the largest SUVs, vehicles are getting wider every year. Now, what does that mean for us? Well, it means that our roads weren't...
Comfortable ride, beautiful engines, smooth. I mean, it's luxury, it's gorgeous.
Well, as I know, I used to have two, but I don't...
You used to have 2 SUVs?
Well, one SUV at a time, but I had 2 brands of them. But I'd no longer drive in London now because I just don't see the point, because of the ULEZ, because of the, you know, you can run down a thing and get fined.
Parking spaces, whatever.
Yeah, the growth in car size also causes issues for their drivers. The report found that largely luxury SUVs, which are about 2 metres wide, no longer fit in off-street parking.
That's true.
They also leave too little space for passengers to get in and out of the vehicles in typical off-street spaces, and they're about 2.4 metres wide, the report found. And I'll tell you, I was stuck in a bus last night trying to get home, and the buses couldn't move because the streets were too crammed with all of these massive cars either side.
Chelsea tractors.
And it was gridlocked.
Yeah, but maybe they're not the problem, maybe the buses are the problem.
Buses take people to their place of work and get
I'd
them
like
home.
to know when, because when I go through London, all I see is empty buses.
Oh, you're lucky. Every time I'm on one, they're full.
Well, they're obviously only full at rush hour. You see, the thing is, property developers, when they do high-rise car parks, or, you know, they build a multiplex cinema and there's a car park attached to it, that's not my fault that I can't fit into their space. It's their fault. So
well, it's all driven by money, isn't it? The more spaces that they have,
exactly.
the more people they can get.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to the final section of Headliners. Let's crack on with the Mail. And psychedelic drugs can improve your sex life. Is this the Daily Mail or the Daily Hippie, Paul? What is this nonsense?
Psychedelic drugs can improve your sex life. Magic mushrooms and LSD boost sexual arousal, satisfaction and attraction to your partner, study finds. Who commissions these studies and how can we get involved? This is ridiculous. You know what can improve my sex life? Sex. Of course things are improved by drugs, Nick, we all know that. I mean, imagine standing around in a Wetherspoons for 6 hours sober.
Yeah. Lewis had a bad trip 10, 20 years ago, and that explains a lot of his current output.
I came here.
Yes.
I came here, but it wasn't... I met a girl with red wine, so it could be any kind of drugs can make you do really bad things. I mean, this is a nice
story. Let's just move on then. Let's move on from this non-story. In the Times, and Henry Cavill wants fewer sex scenes in superhero movies. Fair enough, no one needs to see Ant-Man having sex, although we might find out how he got the name. Lewis, come on, that's gold. That's proper professional comedy. I write this myself, except the racist ones.
It's this guy, it's Mr. Superman, Henry Cavill. He says that no one wants to see sex scenes. This is a story. I'm old enough to remember when this story first came out in the 1960s. And then in the 1970s, and then 1980s, there's always been some guy who basically is promoting his movie, which he has a sex scene by saying, I don't think there should be sex scenes. So he's not, instead of saying, come see my movie, it's got sex scenes in it.
I quite like Cavill, though, because he's sort of he seems to have, like, quite different political views. Like you say, he's into gaming. You get a feeling, it's not that explicit, you get a feeling he's not really with the whole woke Hollywood scene. And this kind of seems part of that as well. He's saying, oh, you know, we don't want gratuitous sex scenes. Maybe he's a conservative, Paul.
Maybe he is, and that would probably get him fired at some point.
Absolutely, fired from Disney. But then Elon Musk would back his lawsuit.
Absolutely.
Back in the
That's
game.
the best way to meet Elon Musk, isn't it? Yeah, of course. I mean, he's got a point, though, isn't he? You don't really want to be... It doesn't need to be. Sometimes they cram it into a poor film. you know, just gratuitous sex. You know, we haven't quite got anything, so let's get some sex scenes in there.
Yeah, like a gratuitous. I saw a really one. It was totally Debbie Does Dallas.
The whole thing.
Was gratuitous. That's such an old reference. People.
It's a great joke. You want to update your references. All right, well, let's do the Daily Star. And people with too much time on their hands are calling for the Midget Pub to change its name as it's too offensive. They've clearly never visited the Fighting Cocks, Lewis, which is a real pub in Kingston.
I bet it is. There's lots of the cocks and the cocks. And cocks.
Yeah?
Cock.
You stop saying cocks.
So if he opened the pub, this is a midget pub, and some Karen, some left-wing Karen out of Liverpool Hope University, who's a lecturer in disability and education or something, and this is a pub that's in Oxfordshire, right next to where they made midget cars, which is. I'm against it.
Against the whole thing. Leave the name.
They always out themselves, don't they, these people? They always out themselves. It's not offensive. It refers to something else completely, and they say it is offensive because they've done the calculation in their head. It's a bit like me walking into a pub called The Contented Pig and saying, this place offends me.
Because you're contented.
Because you're a gammon.
Because I'm a contented gammon.
You're a gammon.
OK.
The people's gammon.
Yeah.
It is pretty absurd.
People's princess.
Yes, exactly. So. Whatever. I don't know what's going on, but let's see the Telegraph. And a man spent 8 years building a matchstick version of the Eiffel Tower, only to be denied the world record. Was this the best use of his time, Paul?
It was not the best use of his time. Absolutely not, if that's the question. Man spends 8 years building a 24-foot matchstick Eiffel Tower, only to be denied the world record. Because the previous one was built with matchsticks, but they had shaved off the flammable part, the cap of the matchsticks, and then built it that way. Whereas he either chopped them off or had the manufacturer
against the rules. Say against the rules.
Against the rules. I'll say against the rules. You're absolutely right.
But was it? Can I just interrupt you because we're running out of time, and I want to make my point. We don't know if it wasn't the best use of his time. You know, his wife could have been horrible.
I mean, she's 8 years on a matchstick tower. She must have been pretty bad.
Yeah, to get away from her. Maybe that's what he needed to do. Maybe they were the calmest, quietest.
We don't know he was married.
Men have their hobbies. A man needs to go, and I'm just filling the last 20 seconds here. Men have their hobbies. They need to go to a shed, get on with something. Yeah. Maybe they didn't need to build a matchstick Eiffel Tower that fails to win the world record.
Have you ever built anything out of matchsticks?
I'm not that kind of guy. I'm an artist.
You're just like lifting weights and...
I bet you have a shed, though, Paul. I
do have a shed.
Yeah.
More to follow on that during the summer.
OK, all right. Well, on that bombshell, we've pretty much got to go. Thanks, guys. Did you swap your ties over?
No.
This is the kind of thing that people tweet me about. Oh, you didn't? OK, it must be me. I must be going completely insane. The show's pretty much over. But let's have another look at Thursday's front pages. So, the Daily Mail have thank you so much for all your kindness, which comes from Prince William. The Guardian revealed Moan told government she wouldn't benefit from PPE deal. The Telegraph, migration won't save UK from debt crisis. The Daily Express has PM opened door to an amazing Boris comeback. The Mirror, shame on you. The Daily Star has return of the beast from the east. And those were your front pages. That is pretty much it for tonight's show. Thanks to Paul and Lewis. Headliners is back tomorrow at 11 p.m. And if you're watching at 5 a.m, then, of course, stay tuned for breakfast. And remember, we've got Rishi Sunak on February 12th with a Q&A. But for now, it's good night or good morning and God bless.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello again and welcome to the latest forecast from the Met Office. I'm Aidan McGiven. Cold in the north for the next 24 hours, mild and wet in the south, in between the risk of disruptive snow in places. Here's the setup as we end the day. We've got clear spells across northern parts of the UK, further snow showers into the north of Scotland, a widespread frost across many parts of northern England, Scotland and Northern Ireland. But further south, rain, wind and milder air arrives into parts of South Wales, southern England, some heavy and persistent rain first thing. Mild air in the south clashes with cold air further north. The band of rain in between turns increasingly wintry as we go through Thursday morning. So across Mid and North Wales, parts of North Midlands into Northern England and then Northern Ireland. We're going to see rain at lower levels, perhaps some sleet in some parts at lower levels, but certainly some disruptive snow over any hills above 100, 200 metres. And for parts of North Wales, the Peak District into the South Pennines, the risk of very disruptive snow, 25 centimetres, and some freezing rain in places as well. All of this pushes north. We've got much milder but wetter weather into the south for Friday, and the rain and hill snow moves through northern England and into southern and central Scotland by this stage. Further wintry showers for the far north of Scotland, but bright weather in between. Milder air for most of us this weekend, but with further rain and showers at times.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Patrick Christie's Tonight. Weekdays from 9 p.m.
We have let Islamist extremism into Britain, we've let it fester, and now we've let it win. Our absolutely spineless surrender merchant political top brass are rolling over while government ministers wear stab vests and quit their jobs in fear. Veteran Tory Minister Mike Freer has had death threats from Islamists as well as an alleged arson attack on his office. The motive there has still not been established. He's standing down because he doesn't want to die. I cannot emphasise how important this is. A minister of the government is quitting his job because he doesn't want to be killed by a lunatic jihadi. And our Prime Minister has said absolutely nothing. Nothing. A spokesman for Rishi Sunak said he was saddened. Is that it? Our Prime Minister should have been out on the steps of Downing Street saying that we will not be intimidated. We will not let this continue. Enough is enough. What does he do instead? He tweets about XL bullies. Yeah, fantastic. Where's Keir Starmer on this? Well, he's conducting focus groups on how to get the Muslim vote back, so he's hardly going to come out all guns blazing, is he? Ed Davey? Well, there's no way a Liberal Democrat leader would come out and admit that his ideology has helped turn Britain into a poster nation for multicultural failure. The police have let protesters, which include rabid anti-Semites, rampage around London every flipping Saturday for the last 3 months. And today, they are finally saying that they don't support some of the protests, which in the past have included a now banned terror group and people holding up anti-Jewish signs. They're saying, please don't march down Whitehall. All right, but will you do anything to stop them if they ignore you? I doubt it. I honestly cannot believe that we have sunk to the level where a serving minister stands down because of threats from extremists and our Prime Minister just doesn't feel the need to address it.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good evening. It's part 2 of the Rwanda files. Yes, I have seen documents from inside the Home Office that strongly suggest to me that when the Prime Minister told us he'd stop the boats, he knew he couldn't actually do it. Another story that I find quite extraordinary is the idea that the Nottinghamshire triple killer, because he's gone to hospital, not prison, could potentially qualify for benefits. Surely not. And the government now have a plan to fix dental decay by bunging 20 grand to dentists to say, please open up your NHS registers. But is it just too little too late? And finally, I think a very important story for the future, as Wes Streeting is heckled in the streets in Bristol. There is now a campaign for sectarian politics in Britain, where there will be candidates exclusively going for Muslim votes. Just how much damage could this do to Labour? But before all of that and a busy packed show, let's get the news with Polly Middlehurst.
Nigel, thank you, and good evening to you. Well, our top story from the GB Newsroom tonight is that police hunting a suspected chemical attacker say he was in a relationship with his victim. New video has been released of Afghan asylum seeker Abdul Azidi nearly a week after a corrosive liquid was thrown at a woman in South London. Police say she'd agreed to meet him on the day of the attack, and they believe a breakdown in their relationship may have been a motive. The 31-year-old mother, who may lose sight in her right eye, remains under sedation in hospital. Darius Nassimi of the Afghan and Central Asian Association says fellow Afghans should not be helping him.
Someone like him should not be harboured. He himself needs help as well. I don't know if he has any mental health problems or issues. For the Afghan community, the message is please stop harbouring him if anyone is, and please stop helping him if they are.
Darius Nassimi. Now, the Prime Minister's been accused of letting parts of the country go without basic dental care. Sir Keir Starmer claims the NHS has been neglected by the Conservatives while they've been in power. That's after the government announced a new plan to boost the number of NHS dental appointments across England by offering to pay dentists for every new patient. Speaking to GB News, Shadow Health Secretary Wes Streeting says the government's taken too long to take action.
It's the worst of all worlds, terrible for patients, and we've heard some horrific examples of DIY dentistry, but also bad for taxpayers, because if you don't get there early with dental problems and regularly maintaining your teeth and looking after them, you end up with conditions that take you to A&E, which costs an arm and a leg for the NHS to deal with in hospital. So it's bad for patients and bad for the taxpayer. And frankly, after 14 years of Conservative government promising to reform the